Hello and welcome back to the SNS Football Podcast. Again, we seem to be stagnated with a lot of these live streams, but it's been a busy period for me and Morgan as well. So we're finally able to do sort of our Premier League team of the seasons now. The Premier League season is over. Obviously, Man City were crowned champions, Man United in second, and Liverpool did manage to get into the top four along with Chelsea on the final day, with obviously Sheffield United, Fulham and West Brom all going down as well. So we will talk more about the Premier League season, obviously, throughout the stream. But of course, we've got our team of the seasons lined up. We've got, I say everyone is here. So firstly, I'm going to add in Villa Morgan. How are you, mate?
Do you know, I'm actually all right, mate. Villa ended the season pretty well. So that's something to be pleased about. Transfer news for us is a little bit mixed. So, I'm coming into this happy with what's happened on the pitch, but in terms of off it, it's a little bit nervy at the moment being a Villa fan.
I fully get your thoughts in terms of transfers, because I feel as though we're in a very similar boat at the minute. Also, we are joined by Chelsea Morgan, and the reason we wanted to get him in is because, of course, on Saturday is the biggest game in club football. It is the Champions League final, where, of course, Man City will be playing Chelsea. So, Chelsea Morgan, how are you, mate?
I'm good. Happy to be back. I can do the flip to Villa Morgan's joy on the final day of the season to how I felt. But no, looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously Villa played Chelsea, and I'm not going to lie, there was a part of me thinking Villa have done one on Chelsea and that's it. They're not getting in the top four. But I think you can thank Tottenham a little bit for keeping your place in there. I can imagine.
But everything was up. I had the Villa Chelsea game, and I had Tottenham Leicester, and I became, for the first time ever, I think every Chelsea fan was also a Tottenham fan.
I think that's a very true statement, and I think you needed to be a Tottenham fan on that day, because that's what got you through, and you will be playing. You've got that weight off your shoulder that you will be playing Champions League next season, despite the result on Saturday. So, without further ado, I suppose the best place to start is sort of the Premier League season. It's been a completely mad season. I think if you look at certain teams, if you had predicted where they'd finish at the beginning of the season, you'd probably be called absolutely mental. I think, to be honest, I think one of the biggest ones for that is probably Sheffield United. And obviously we'll start with sort of the bottom three going down. I remember it was actually Chelsea Rory on the kickoff, and when they did their predictions saying that Sheffield United would finish bottom. And I was like, what is he on about? I mean, we've seen what they were like last season, obviously finishing, I think they were top half last season, had a little bit of a Europe push before, obviously, Project Restart, where they sort of fell off a cliff a little bit. But I thought, there's no way these lot get relegated this season. And hey-oh, they're sort of, rock bottom, and, they'll be in the Championship next season. So with them, West Brom, Fulham, mixed seasons for a lot of them. Villa Morgan, will start with you. Obviously, with West Brom being Midland rivals to Villa, and Fulham having just come up as well, is it a bit disappointing that two new clubs that have come up haven't been able to solidify their place for next season?
I think Fulham and West Brom, though, they're both accustomed to owners that, for me, lack real ambition. West Brom a lot more than Fulham. I think West Brom do lack a sense of direction, but I'm hearing rumours that Chris Wilder is heading there next season, and that would be massive for him, because I think he is someone that he knows the passion that a club like West Brom needs to have in it. Because at the moment, I think that Bilic sacking, the time that it did, and then almost just putting in a stopgap in Sam Allardyce, I think West Brom, for a very, very long time, have got away with the fact that there's no real long-term vision. And with Fulham, they were just a bit unfortunate this season. When it looked as though that they were going to make the great escape, unfortunately, they just didn't have enough Premier League experience in that squad. And You can have all the best individuals, in that bottom half of the table, but what's going to get them over the line is that experience. And I think the Villa Fulham game actually relegated them, because look, 1-0 up away from home, 15 minutes to go, and there was no leader on that pitch. And Villa put 3 past you in the last 15 minutes when we were on a horrendous run of form, and they get relegated from them. Really, they didn't really look back from that moment. But I'm hoping that Fulham stick with Scott Parker, because I think he's proved that he's got the capabilities. If they can get a bit more experience in coming up from the Championship into the Premier League, they could be a really handy side. It's just a massive rebuild job because they had an awful lot of loans, and so did West Brom actually since Big Sam's come in. So I wouldn't be surprised if both don't go up, purely because of the rebuild that's actually on task. And Sheffield United's a bit of a weird one because they've got a massive rebuild, in my opinion. That squad has been overworked and it's overachieved for me. And again, there's another rebuild in that. Yukici Stojanovic has been named manager. Is he the man to do it? I'm not quite sure. He's probably going to get them out the Championship, if anyone. But I'm looking at if they was to get back into the Premier League. He failed with Fulham miserably. So, look, I think all 3 clubs need a sense of direction. I think if West Brom got wilder and Parker stayed at Fulham, I think those 2 have more of a chance next season of coming straight back up than Sheffield United, because I'm really not sure about Stojanovic after Fulham when he was there, because he was poor there.
Yeah, definitely. Chelsea, Morgan, we'll come to you. Sort of, Morgan mentioned the managerial sort of situations there. We've obviously got Chris Wilder rumoured to be sort of the next West Brom manager, and I think that's pretty nailed on. I can't pronounce the new Sheffield United manager's name, but he's gone in there and he's obviously, gone up with Fulham, but hasn't been able to sort of solidify Fulham in the Prem. And you've got Scott Parker still at Fulham. Would you be surprised if Scott Parker was still at Fulham next season? Obviously, there's rumoured interest probably from Tottenham, most likely, because they're without a manager at the minute. But do you think he will be at Fulham next season? Because I think, it could go 50-50 depending on what Tottenham do. Because let's be honest, they've been out without a manager for a bit of time now since they got rid of Mourinho. And I don't think there's really a name nailed on to sort of take that role. If you look at Wolves, for example, obviously Nuno has left and they've sort of got their next manager sort of there pretty much. But with Tottenham, it's been very quiet. So I wonder whether they are going to give it to the likes of a Scott Parker or, someone else, and maybe the bottom half, maybe even Graham Potter. If
you're going to give it to Scott Parker, why not keep it at Ryan Mason? Because they're kind of at the same point in their managerial career. I know Scott Parker's done, two and a bit years. He did the end of the Premier League season, then got promoted, and now he's gotten back down. The only way Fulham don't start next season with Scott Parker is if he's at a bigger club. They won't sack him because he's done too much with that club, and I think he's got more of a status within Fulham than other club legends that have gone back as managers have. Personally, for me, Spurs need a bigger name, not a Ryan Mason, not a Scott Parker. They need someone. I mean, it came out earlier today, they're looking to open up talks with Pochettino again to come back. I don't think that's going to happen because I think he's got too much to work out with PSG. I think the Champions League is there for him to win. So, I mean, Nuno's on the table now for Spurs, so Scott Parker stays there. But the West Brom situation baffles me because they tried to get out of jail free card. They get Sam Allardyce in, and it is this trump card. He gets you Premier League survival. All of a sudden, that doesn't happen. He's not going to be cheap. He's not going to come in on minimum wage like a Scott Parker will be cheaper than a Sam Allardyce, for example. So they're going to have to be clever with who they get in. If it is Chris Wilder, how much they can then put into their playing budget, and if that hampers them next season. Because, look at the Championship this season. Brentford's back up there again. Swansea. It seems like Cardiff missing out, and that Middlesbrough missing out. All these teams, Middlesbrough was proven championship promotion in Neil Warnock. So these teams are going to be up there. Is it going to be easy for Fulham, Sheffield United and West Brom just to turn it around again? We saw Fulham do it, but it's not easy to go from relegation straight back up.
Definitely. And I think you mentioned obviously West Brom there, and another thing I want to say is the thing that shocked me the most is West Brom actually offered Sam Allardyce the chance to stay with them in the Championship, and I could not get my head round that, because I don't think that would have worked at all had he have stayed. And Villa Morgan will come to you, because, I was baffled by that. And, Sam obviously said in his, I think it was post-match interview for his final game or his last home game, that, that shows the ambition of West Brom to, want to keep me in charge. But I just could not get my head around why you'd want to keep Sam Allardyce in the Championship, because you know what he's going to do. He usually midway through a season, he comes in, keeps the team up, leaves, and then he'll go to another team. So I don't understand what the logic was to give him sort of the full-time job in the Championship.
I think, like I said earlier, I think West Brom just really lack an idea. They lack an identity. They lack a vision. They've got owners that the fans have got a very toxic relationship with, from what I'm aware of. And, I think the fans ultimately lost the respect for the owners as soon as Slaven Bilic got sacked, because Slaven Bilic actually had a sense of direction with the club. Because, all right, they weren't doing well at the time in the Premier League, but West Brom barely had a pre-season like anyone else. The transfer situation was obviously a very difficult one, because they couldn't really attract that much of a level of a player. With the squad that they currently had, there was no real pulling power to go to West Brom. And I just think it's a case of them just really lacking an ambition and lacking an identity. And, you look at a club like I'll use Villa as a perfect example, but it can be a perfect example in that you look at us a few years ago, we were an absolute mess of a club. Poor ownership, fans hated the owners, and we've had owners come in that care. We've had a new ownership. They've stuck by a manager that is learning and has the best interest of the club at heart. And we're now in a situation where we've secured a really positive Premier League finish for 2 seasons in a row. I know obviously last year weren't great, but we stayed up. And we've now got a thriving academy system with players that for me in a few years' time are going to be, or even next season, they're going to be part of our first team. West Brom just seem, there's no real academy players coming through. You just don't hear about it. And for someone that was in the West Brom academy like myself, they have genuinely good people there, and it just shows the lack of ambition that Albion had when Louis Barry decided to opt out of the academy at the time that he did and go to Barcelona to then come back to Villa. It just goes to show you that there is clear problems at West Brom, and if an academy player is seeing it at the age of 15 years old, that the future at West Brom is not going to be bright for him. Look at him now. He's just won the FA Youth Cup with Villa and beat, Liverpool, who are arguably one of the best youth setups in the world. So I just think with West Brom, they just really lack an identity and a vision. And I think the Premier League and the EFL have definitely got to do more. This is a debate for another day, but they've definitely got to do more to have owners at football clubs that genuinely have the best interest at the club at heart. Because for West Brom, there's quite clearly no ambition and no heart. Because if they did, they wouldn't be offering a guy in Sam Allardyce another deal in the Championship. It's just bizarre, because you imagine his brand of football in the Championship. It's hard enough to watch in the Premier League, because I don't think they'll keep hold of Pereira personally. And he is literally the reason why West Brom even had a chance of staying up, because he was producing that moment of quality to get them out of games and be that difference. Pereira's not going to be in the Championship next season. And I just think it would have ended horrifically bad. They would have started the season poor and he'd have got sacked. And then they'd be looking for a new manager. So I do feel sorry for him because I just think they lack a bit of a vision, really, especially with the owners.
There's only one
definitely.
reason to keep Sam Allardyce in the Championship, because he's only been in there one season and he got out of it. He got promoted with West Ham through the playoffs. So I think the only thing that would be the only reason they'd have in their heads to keep him on is that he has been promoted from there, albeit through the playoffs. And then if they gets them back in the Premier League, then he's more inclined to stay for next season and build on with this project that they then hope that he would stay for a few more years. But I get what you're saying, that mentality wise, it's so hard for teams that come up to the Premier League. I think only once in the last 5 years has all three teams stayed in the Premier League. And I think in the last 2 years, two of the promoted sides have gone straight back. So it is difficult because of the money. That disparity between the Championship and Premier League is huge. But owners need to realise that and be ready to not bankroll clubs, but have them ready for when they're pushing for the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's an interesting point that, we haven't really seen all three newly promoted clubs stay in the league. Obviously, we've had, different examples. Like you look at Wolves when they come up and they did fantastically well. Even Leeds this season, they've had a really strong season and finished, I think, they finished top half or just below. So
yeah, they finished ninth this year.
Yeah, so there's two examples of teams, coming straight up from the Championship and, not really having too many problems with staying in the league. But again, just quickly to end on sort of the teams that got relegated, if you had to pick one team that would come up next season from the three that went down, who would your money be on? Chelsea, Morgan, we'll start with you.
Fulham. I think if they back Scott Parker, it's what I said this season. If they back Scott Parker, they'll stay up. I think if they can, just even with the squad they've got now, they can keep the bulk of it together. I think they've got a very good chance of going straight back. Sheffield United have got too big a job. They've got a new manager to adapt to. Same with West Brom. So, yeah, Fulham for me.
So in that case, do you think Scott Parker will be at Fulham next season?
That's what I'm basing it off, is that Scott Parker stays and they keep the bulk of that squad together. I mean, I doubt Areola's staying in the Championship. I'd be very surprised. But there are Deacon Reed should still be there. Joe Bryan should still be there. There's a bulk of players that should still be at the club.
Definitely. But they got massive holes to fill, with the likes of Anderson probably staying in the Prem next season, Lookman going back and players of that sort of caliber.
Well, Anderson, Lookman, Loftus-Cheek will be coming back to Chelsea, possibly to leave, but there'll be a lot of all three sides have loan players going back and players that want to be poached by Premier League sides. So there's going to be spots to fill, as there is with any relegated side, but I do think that they had the best squad of the three.
Fair enough. Before we obviously kind of achieve it, Morgan, I would personally say my money would probably be on Fulham as well. But obviously that is if Scott Parker is still manager. If he was to leave, then I'd have to see who they get in before I make the decision, to be honest, because they could get in a good manager or someone we've never heard of. So I'd go with Fulham as well. Villa, Morgan, we'll come to you. Who's your money on to possibly make an immediate return to the Prem out of them three?
I would definitely be inclined or sort of swayed towards saying Fulham. But do you know what? I just have a weird feeling about Albion. I really do. I don't think any of the three teams have a real advantage over the other because all three clubs have got to massively rebuild. Like even Fulham, Mitrovic is quoted to be leaving. He would have been massive for them in the Championship. Fulham are going to have to find a new goalkeeper. Anderson's not going to stay there. Anthony Robinson as well. He's got high potential. I wouldn't be surprised if a Premier League team come knocking on the door. All three clubs have got players that, Villa have been after Sander Berg for most of January. I imagine him from Sheffield United, he won't be there. John Fleck, he's got potential to be, again, a solid Premier League midfielder. I think all clubs that have gone down, Pereira at West Brom, they've all got players that will just be nitpicked. And I think it's a difficult job for any manager. And I think we'll really see what Scott Parker's made of if he stays there, because it's going to be a massive rebuild job. And he's done it once, getting them back up. Can he do it again? That's the real test, because if anything, I think if he doesn't get them up this season, I think knowing the ownership at Fulham, I think he could be gone, because at the end of the day, they're looking at it and saying, look, we don't want to be a yo-yo club. And that's what they have been recently. So, do you know what? I'm going to be, just to be different, I'm going to say West Brom, because West Brom seem to always get out of that league. I don't know how they do it, because they always just have such a bog standard average side, but they always seem to get out of it one way or another. So I'm going to go the Albion, because if they get Chris Wilder, I think he'll get them up. I think he'll get the best out of everyone there. Players like Furlong and Bartley, and I think he'll get the best out of them.
Fair enough. I would usually now move into sort of, Tottenham, and who's obviously taken up the UEFA Conference League place. But before we sort of work our way into Europe, let's just have a little chat on sort of Arsenal and how they've been this season. I mean, it has been cool. What's the word to even describe it? I was going to call it a shambles, to be honest. Is
Worst
that fair
season
enough?
in the Premier League era for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, well, let's put it this way. They were 15th at one point, and, they finished, what, 8th? 9th?
8th.
Yeah, so things have got better. But at the end of the day, Arsenal, first time out of Europe in, I think, 20-odd years. They're all saying trust the process with Arteta, but if you look at Emery and Wenger when they were there, they both finished 5th and they wanted them gone. So I personally don't see Arsenal, and this could come back to bite me, but I don't see Arsenal in the top 6 again next season, because I don't see their board giving Arteta the money to go and get top quality players that will take them into Europe. Yes, if they sign a player like Buendia, that's fine. Is he the player that's going to get them back into Europe? Because they're also going to need, a couple of defenders. They're probably going to need a couple of midfielders. They're going to need other players in other positions. I just think they've got too many areas they need to fill with quality players, and their board isn't going to give them the funds to do that. So they'll probably only finish this summer with 2 or 3 positions that they've strengthened in. But there could be another 3 or 4 they haven't, and they've still got them areas. So for me, I don't see Arsenal in the top 6 next season. I think they've got a massive, massive rebuild. And again, going into next season, there's going to be question marks around Arteta as to whether he's still the man, and he's got to start the season well and have a good season for me to keep his job, because I think he's lucky at the minute to still have it as well.
Look at the caliber of player they're looking at. I've seen one big name. I haven't seen the Buendia one. I've seen Yves Bissouma. He's just finished 16th with Brighton. Is that a player? He's a good player, don't get me wrong, but is he the player to take you from 8th to 4th, which is ultimately where Arsenal want to be? This hasn't just been a one season, we've dropped from the Champions League to out and we'll be back in, like we saw with Chelsea in 2016, United in what 2018, I think it was. This has happened from about 2011, 2012, where we've gradually seen Arsenal decline from winning the league in 2004, getting into the Champions League final in 2006. Then we've had a massive hiatus of not winning a trophy until 2015, when they won the FA Cup against Hull. And then they seemed content with that to win the FA Cup regularly, but they were still getting top 4. Then they dropped out of that with Wenger, but because the money for 4th place isn't as much as the other clubs were getting, who were having more success in the Champions League. So then they dropped out, and they were kind of, okay, we're in the Europa League, let's try and win it, get back in the Champions League through the back door. And it's just gradually got to this point where I don't even think they've realised it until now, that they are a step and a half, 2 steps behind City, Chelsea, United, Liverpool, Tottenham. And that it's going to take 2, 3, 4 years to even get close to where they think they need to be. And there's obviously issues at the top with the Cronkies, and the fact that the fans seem to just be content with Arteta getting 8th. Oh, let's give him a season. He came in half season 8th. Let's give him a full season 8th again. And there's not even a glimmer of let's replace the manager. I know it's not always the right thing to do to sack the manager, but there's not even been Arteta isn't the man. When Emery finished 5th, when Emery was 8th in the league, it was let's get him gone. We need someone new. When other clubs are stuttering, the first thing they say is manager. So the players don't seem interested. Aubameyang, one of the worst seasons I've seen from him in his career. Lacazette, just so many. I think the Europa League semi-final second leg just summed it up. Not one player had a bit of grit, a bit of determination about them at all to get them over the line. They needed one goal that night, and they didn't show anything to try and get it. The only players all season that have looked interested are the younger players, Saka, Martinelli. They're the only Tierney. They're the only ones that have looked anything like being interested for the club, not just themselves in their own careers. It's going to take a lot to weed out the old. I think it's the older players that are the issue, and it's going to take a lot to weed them out and turn Arsenal around. And it's a shame that it's happened.
Yeah, and I think you even look at players they've brought in. I mean, Willian this season, non-existent pretty much. I mean,
wants to go back to Chelsea.
Yeah, you look at the likes of as well. Xhaka probably leaving. David Luiz is leaving, and I know these are players who probably haven't had the best of seasons, but they are experienced players, and you think they would help sort of the younger players as well. But Morgan, it's where do Arsenal go from this? I mean, like Morgan mentioned, Bissouma and Buendia are the sort of players they're linked with. To be honest, as a United fan, I take Bissouma at United because I think he'd suit sort of what we play. But again, you're not seeing them linked with I don't want to say high quality players because of course them two are really good players, but the caliber of players that are going to get them back into that top 6 or even top 4. You're not seeing that from Arsenal, even linked with them, let alone signing them. So it's like, where do they go from there? And like I said, I can't see him in the top 6 next season.
I've seen some quite bizarre Arsenal fans put Jack Grealish on the back of the new away kit. They seem to believe that Grealish is heading for Arsenal. I don't see him taking a step back in his career, I'm afraid. Emi Martinez put the nail in the coffin for Arsenal by saying at the start of the season that it's a step forward for him in his career, and God, has it been. No, look, I think I said a few weeks ago when me and you were talking about the Europa League and we've been talking about Arsenal throughout the season, I said Arsenal will just keep continuing to decline under the regime of Stan Kroenke because unfortunately he is just, again, another guy that is not fit to own a football club. He has no interest whatsoever in what happens on the pitch. Arsenal fans can't even remember the last time that he turned up to a game. His son consistently keeps turning up, but even he's now getting ridiculed at fans forums. And I just think we've seen with Arsenal this season that when the pressure's off, they've actually performed very, very well. You know, you look at their end to the season, they ended the season really, really strong. 8th is a false position for me. For Arsenal this season, but all of a sudden when there's no pressure on, Pepe starts playing well, even Willian starts popping up and doing bits. I just think there's so much pressure and such an ego around Arsenal that it's pretty much impossible, even without fans in the stadium, for any person to put on that Arsenal shirt and not feel the heat from the board to the fans to the players. It's a toxic club at the moment. It really is. And it's a shame to see one of England's most historic clubs in such turmoil. But the thing is that Arsenal cannot attract that level of player anymore. They haven't got the guarantee of Champions League football to get certain signings over the line anymore. You know, Thomas Partey, I keep hearing that he's world class. I watch him every week and he puts the ball out more times than he plays it to people's feet. he's not the answer to Arsenal becoming a top 4 side. The thing is, I do actually think that both Basuma and Buendia would be fantastic signings for Arsenal, because Buendia is similar to Grealish in that he's a maverick. You don't know what you're going to get from him in terms of when he's actually in possession in the final third. I think he'd be a good player for Arsenal. Basuma definitely shore up that midfield. I think it would allow Partey a bit more of a license to sit back and not have to cover Xhaka all the time, or Ceballos, or whichever clown he's playing next to in centre midfield. I just think Arsenal need to invest in their youth system, because I think that's the best way for them to move forward, because they're not going to be able to attract world beaters of players, especially in the current market. And with COVID, they're not going to be able to go out and spend big this summer. And they're just stuck in a loop. And the phrase healing an axe wound with a plaster is the perfect analogy of Arsenal for decades now. And now that Wenger's gone, it's completely masked. He masked over the axe wound that was actually at Arsenal. And look, we're looking at, I think, 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years before Arsenal even come close to top 4 football. And that's with Stan Kroenke hopefully leaving, a new owner coming in that's ambitious, that wants to spend money. But look, if I was Arsenal, I would be looking at players like Basuma, Buendia, because they are simply not going to be able to attract massive players this summer. No one's going to want to go to Arsenal. So, yeah, for them, I would just be looking at getting in buys, if anything.
I think just trying
to fill the squad.
What do Arsenal have now in 2021 this summer? What do Arsenal have that Leeds, Wolves, Villa, all the Southampton? What do they have that they don't have? Nothing. If anything, those clubs have got more because they've got owners that might back the club. Wolves have shown it. Leeds have shown it. Villa are showing it. These clubs are probably more attractive prospects to a younger player now than Arsenal. Why would anyone, like you say, they're a toxic club, why would anyone choose to go to Arsenal? Obviously I'm a bit biased Chelsea, but I can't think of any player that would go to Arsenal over any of the other top 6 clubs. And if anything, you can go back a couple of months, this makes a complete mockery of the Super League now. How are we going to put a club that finished 8th in the Premier League in one of the 12 elite clubs in Europe? Oh, you're guaranteed to play the big boys. They can't even finish above West Ham, and they're better than them. They can be automatically in a European competition. So, but that's an argument for a different day. There's so many things. You say if Arsenal can get the Cronkies out and change managers, change the players out, that's such a big job. And we've seen for years now that the Cronkies just aren't prepared to buckle under fan pressure.
And I think even we'll go on to United later. I think we're in a similar boat as well. But moving on into Europe, Tottenham obviously are the first English team to go into the European Conference League or whatever.
Europa Conference League.
That's the one. And then West Ham and Leicester in the Europa League. West Ham going on a European tour. Leicester, unfortunately, again, for the second season in a row, on the last day, missing out on Champions League football. I know, Morgan, you're happy about that. But we'll quickly talk about them 3 clubs. Tottenham, again, like we mentioned earlier, no news about a new manager coming in. Gareth Bale going back to Madrid. Harry Kane basically leaving, I think, in my opinion. I think it's a very slim chance he's there next season. Who knows what can happen with maybe Heung-min Son as well. So, again, Tottenham in a little bit of a rebuild with again, no manager to sort of start that. And then on the other end of the scale, West Ham, what a season they've had. And they could probably look back on it and think, it's a little bit disappointing we didn't end up getting into the Champions League, because at one point they were as good a shout as anyone to get in there. They were probably a better shout than Liverpool to finish in the Champions League, and they were probably a better shout than, I'd say, Chelsea.
No,
but that was probably before Tuchel took over. So, West Ham could definitely look back on this and think, we've got European football, which is magnificent, but maybe a bit disappointing they're not in the Champions League. And then finally with Leicester, again, it'll probably be a bit of disappointment for them for the second season in a row. United did it last season where, we come from nowhere and nip them on the last day, and then Chelsea, you finish in there as well. And then this season, it's been Liverpool that did what United did last season, where they just come from nowhere, nip them on the last couple of games, and Leicester and in the Europa League again. So I guess mixed emotions for them three clubs, but nevertheless, some good seasons, some bad seasons. So, Philip Morgan, we'll come to you first. I don't think if you said West Ham would finish in the Europa League this season, then, I think you should have gone and got yourself a lottery ticket, because it would have been absolutely absurd to have said something stupid like that at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I have to credit West Ham, because with such a thin squad, and it's so annoying because every single player that West Ham seem to sign, Villa are linked with, and I wish that we'd signed Jared Bowen. I wish we'd have signed Said Benrahma. Oh, it's so frustrating because I've been speaking to a lot of West Ham fans actually, and they're obviously really, really happy and content with the season. But I'm gutted because I think personally, if we'd have had Grealish fit for all 3 months that he was out, I think we'd be where West Ham are now. And that's a real shame for us, because watching a team in West Ham who I think we are much better than, going into Europe next season, it's highly frustrating, but you can't discredit at all the job that they've done. I think Declan Rice is like Jack Grealish to us. I think if you take Declan Rice out of that side, I know they got results without him, but I think they struggle so much. But him and Souček have been phenomenal this year. I think they've had a very similar season to Villa, where players from last season have developed under Moyes. They've showed that going into every single game they've just been fearless. And there's some of the results that they've picked up this season, beating Spurs at home. They probably should have beat Arsenal, going to United and giving them the game that they have. They've actually done and exceeded everyone's expectations. And I just think Moyes deserves so much credit, because everyone thought he was finished. But what he's actually built is a team that have got a clear identity. And, for me, probably blunder of the season was saying that I didn't want Lingard in January, because he's just proved all the doubters wrong. And ultimately, he was what ignited the flame in West Ham halfway through this season. West Ham were looking as if they were about to drop off, and they bring Lingard in because they needed a 10, and he's just took them all the way to Europe. And West Ham have had very minimal injuries throughout the season. I think they've been very fortunate in that, they have been able to keep a very sustainable team for most of the season. Yeah, they've had injuries to Connor, had injuries to Antonio here and there, but it's the goals from outside of Antonio, like Craig Dawson, like Lingard, like Jared Bowen popping up with the odd goal for 4 nouns. Everyone in the team has just stepped up. Souček scoring loads, even Rice towards the back end of the season. Everyone going forward has just stepped up with the goals, and look, fair play to them. They've had a magnificent season. As for Tottenham, a terrible season. I think it has to be said. I think our match against them just sums Tottenham up this season. Perfect opportunity to salvage Europa League football. Reguilon puts one in his own net, then passes to Ollie Watkins, and they lose 2-1, drop out of European football, and they're playing in the Europa Conference League. It's just, Spurs are just an absolute mess, aren't they? It's just a disaster, absolute disaster. Harry Kane, I don't know whether you guys have obviously watched the overlap, but you may as well honestly just get him in Manchester, because they're not releasing that interview without something being signed and already agreed. So I think he's going Man City this summer. And I really do worry for Tottenham, because for me, without Harry Kane, I think they're bottom half. I really do. I think they finished bottom half of the Premier League without Harry Kane. I really do. I don't think they even get anywhere near that top 10. I genuinely don't, because Harry Kane this season, in terms of goals, assists, his link-up play in the 10, who honestly, who are Tottenham going to bring? No, but seriously, with that defence, who's going to bring in, manager-wise and players-wise, to almost make up the deficit on other teams? For me, if I was Tottenham, I have no idea why they are not going and getting Marcelo Bielsa from Leeds. He plays attacking football. He knows what he's doing. He's made a Leeds side that are bang average, 8th in the Premier League this season, or 9th, wherever they finished. Why are Tottenham Hotspur not going and getting the manager that Pep Guardiola, Maurizio Pochettino, they've all said is the messiah of football? Bielsa has proved this season that, yeah, you might concede a lot of goals going one way, but I tell you what, with the attacking players that Spurs have, they'll score an awful lot the other way. And I think someone like Bielsa would actually be able to maybe even keep Harry Kane. He'd keep Son there. He'd keep the attacking players there and bring in even better attacking players. I genuinely fear for Spurs so much, because let's be honest here, with Harry Kane being the way that he is and the fees going round, they're not, with COVID, they're not going to get the money that they want for him. Realistically, the market being as fluctuated as it is, they're not going to bring in anyone even close to Harry Kane's quality with the money that they're going to sell him for. So I really do wonder who they're going to bring in, because it's a massive, massive job to get. Honestly, that defence need, the whole of their defence needs changing. If Kane goes, where's any of the goals going to come from? I'd be seriously worried as a Spurs fan, because I don't think I'm wrong in saying that they will genuinely finish bottom half of the Premier League next season if Harry Kane leaves. Mark my words, if they don't sign anyone, or they sign poor calibers of players, they will genuinely be bottom half next season, honestly, because they have not got a better squad than the likes of Villa if Harry Kane leaves. No way, not a chance. Not a chance. They haven't got a better squad than West Ham, in my opinion, without Harry Kane. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how bad their squad is. It's actually ridiculous. The fact that Eric Dyer, Davison Sanchez, Matt Doherty, that honestly is a bottom half defence. How is anyone telling me any different? Lloris is past it. Dembele turns up when he wants, but he's been good this season. Bale doesn't even want to be there. Son will leave if Kane leaves. They are a mess. And it is all Daniel Levy's fault, because getting rid of Pochettino has killed that club. And yeah, trying to get him back may appease the fans. It may, get a few fans on board that he's tried to get Poch back. But even if Poch goes back there,
no one's going to be there.
Expect anything recently. I really don't. And yeah, moving on from Spurs, but I think they deserve it, because I think they need a reality check like Arsenal. I think they're in the same boat as Arsenal. I really do. New stadium, massive decline, best players wanting to leave. I don't think they should be taking the mick out of Arsenal at all, because I think they're two similar clubs in two similar situations. It's just that Spurs have got two world-class players in Kane and Son that have carried them through the year. And Leicester, I mean, it's so frustrating because I wanted them to make top four so much, and we did physically everything we possibly could to get them in the top four. But at the end of the day, even helping out your Midlands rivals, they still don't want to take it. It's just mental with Leicester. I've seen some ridiculous stat that over the last two seasons they've spent 70 weeks in the top four, and both seasons they've not made it. It's comical. It really is. You know, Leicester at the end of the day are look, that FA Cup final was something special, but you can't deny that they have bottled top four. You know, from Brendan Rodgers' point of view, I think he'd be absolutely gutted with the amount of injuries that they've had this season to be there the whole way out and to, you know, let it slip on the last day, especially against such a winnable Spurs side. You know, you're playing a Spurs that have just got battered by Villa at home. You know, you're playing a Spurs side that haven't got a proper manager. You're playing a Spurs that Harry Kane quite clearly doesn't want to be there. And they just cracked under the pressure. And don't get me wrong, I think they've done remarkable this season. But I definitely think there is an element of Leicester fans that, although they'll probably tell you on the surface that they're so happy that they've just got Europa League football, you know, there'll be a lot of fans that I do think will start to question, if another season like that happens, is there another manager out there? As controversial as that sounds, is there a man that can actually cement them that top four football every year? Because to be there all season and to drop out, there's clearly a mentality there beginning to build under Brendan Rodgers that they are bottling it every year. And you do fear that a lot of the problems that Leicester faced in the back end of this season was actually the anticipation building around from last season because they bottled it. And this season, they've done no different. They've completely bottled it to be 2-1 up at home with 20 minutes to go, with Villa doing you a massive favour, and to lose 4-2. There's definitely a mentality issue at Leicester with regards to getting things over the line in the Premier League. You can't doubt what happened in the FA Cup, but I think it's been good to see. I think it's been good for Leicester and West Ham. Spurs have had a shocker like Arsenal, but I think both Leicester and West Ham will be very disappointed in that. I think West Ham could have done a lot more to push top four, and I think Leicester could have done a lot more to stay in the top four. But at the end of the day, they've both got Europe, so I don't think they'll be too displeased.
Definitely. Chelsea, Morgan, sort of summarise, you know, them three clubs this season, because I think, you know, I get what you mean about Tottenham's squad, and you know whether they'll be below bottom half next season. Again, it depends who they bring in, because I think Kane will go, and I think you're correct in saying he'll go to Manchester, but to the blue side of Manchester, and I think that, you know, Son might leave as well. But again, it all depends on the manager they bring in and who he can bring in with them. Because for all we know, it could be Nuno, who knows the league, deserves his chance at a top six club, and he could bring in some excellent, you know, maybe Portuguese players or whatever, and do really well for them. So I think it's a bit early to call where they could finish next season. But I get your point as to, you know, their squad could be massively completed.
Just off the back of that, right? Nuno is a very interesting one for Spurs, because if Spurs were to bring Reguilon back, they've already got Doherty there. Dyer prefers playing in a back three. Sanchez looks a lot more comfortable in a back three. Alderweireld looks a lot more comfortable in a back three. Nuno was fantastic at Wolves for having that system employed. He could potentially be the perfect manager for Spurs, because Doherty was, I mean, he was absolutely sensational in that right wing back role for Nuno. And Reguilon not a left back for me. He's a wing back because I think he's got so much going forward rather than going backwards. He genuinely could be a perfect fit for Tottenham because of the personnel that they've got there. So I wouldn't be surprised if Levy was looking at him based off what you're saying as well. Because I think we spoke about it before, mate, but I think the signings that Spurs made absolutely no sense to the system that Mourinho then tried playing. And I think Nuno would have the perfect system to accommodate those players that are currently at Spurs and potentially prevent them from what I'm saying without Harry Kane being in the bottom half of the table.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, I think the Doherty point is a good one as well, because I think he's such a good right wing back, but you put him as right back is not the same, and he doesn't offer that solidity that he would at right wing back with possibly 3 defenders behind him. So look, as you've probably seen by the TikTok, my money's on Nuno, Scott Parker, or Graham Potter to take that job. So be interested to see who does, but I can't see it being anyone else apart from them 3. But who knows? Chelsea Morgan, just quickly, them 3 clubs. I mean, obviously, you're happy Leicester dropped points the last day of the season, so you guys stayed in. Obviously, Tottenham now in the Conference League, but West Ham, a fantastic season. Like we said, possibly disappointed they're not in the Champions League.
I mean, there's not much to add, really, from I think Villa Morgan summed it up very well. The only thing I would say is, building on that point, Spurs have put themselves in this situation by acting so rashly with Pochettino 2 years ago. If they just stuck with him in a bit of a sticky patch, they'd be out of this. I feel like too many clubs have seen the hire and fire them that Chelsea have had for nearly 20 years. And it's been successful at Chelsea. And clubs have tried to recreate it, and no one can. For whatever reason, it only works at one club. Arsenal have tried it with getting rid of Wenger, Emery, Arteta. It hasn't worked. United tried it. Now they've stayed stable with Solskjaer. Spurs tried it. It hasn't worked. City were going through it until they got to Guardiola with varying levels of success. I don't see... If they stuck with Pochettino, they'd still be a Champions League club. As with Arsenal, they're going backwards. And whether or not Kane stays there next season, I think I even think with Kane at the club next season, they miss out on European football, full stop. I think Everton are too strong. I think West Ham are going to build on it, even if they lose players. I think Leicester will be up there again. And if Everton can keep on this Ancelotti project, well, bye-bye Tottenham and Arsenal, because they're not good enough now. Son will want to leave because he's too good for the Conference League. Kane's definitely too good. Even across the back line, Reguilon, you could say, is at least a Europa League player. And Ndombele is at least a Europa League player. You could go through the whole squad. None of them are of a level that you'd expect to be there. And, well, I mean, they obviously deserve to be there because that's the squads that's put together. But they're the one that annoy me the most because they're annoyed at themselves rather than any external factors like owners. Levy isn't the best owner. He doesn't back the club in negotiations and stuff the way a good owner does. But they haven't exactly covered themselves in glory following on from what he's given them. West Ham, I don't think they'll be annoyed. I think, there'll be a bit of, we're in the top 4 for the majority, for quite a large portion of the season, and we let Chelsea and Liverpool catch us. We allowed them to stutter through the middle part of the season and then catch up again. But even so, I mean, I was just looking a couple of minutes ago at my predictions for the start of the season. My bottom 3 was Fulham, West Brom, and West Ham. So for them to be 6th from my prediction of 18th is a bit, and I think I hadn't written Moyes off, but he'd not had a great spell at United. He'd then not just been poor at Sociedad, relegated with Sunderland, sacked by West Ham previously. I couldn't see any way that Moyes going back was going to work. And fair play to him, he's been given time for the first time since his Everton job, and he's been allowed to put his mark on the team, and it has led to success, which maybe other clubs that he was at will look at and go, maybe we should have given him a transfer window or two just to get his mark on the team. But yeah, they'll be happy with, and unlike 2016, sorry, they'll be straight in the Europa League. They don't have to qualify. They don't have to go to any Romanians. They can go straight into the group stage, which will be great for them. The money they'll get should solidify them in the Premier League for the next 5 years. And Leicester, have they got a bottling issue with the end of the Premier League season? If the same thing happens next season, then yes, they do. Rodgers, I've said it all along, this was the best job for him to come back to the Premier League to. Leicester was low pressure. The owners never throw millions and millions. They never ask you to win anything. They're just kind of, if you stay in the Premier League and you put in a good show, they seem to be relatively pleased. Obviously, the mindset's changed a little since 2016 when they won the league, but the general perception is if you do well, if you don't get relegated, you've done all right. And he came back from obviously rebuilding his career at Celtic and has rebuilt the Leicester sides from one that was kind of languishing in mid-table under Puel. So I think there's a few players that are going. Obviously, Fuchs and Wes Morgan are retiring. Vardy, we saw towards the back end of this season, is now at the end of his career. But this was the first time really since Leicester came up to the Premier League that he's not scored for them. Iheanacho took the plate. There's a few players who aren't good enough, and that was shown, I think. But they've also got good young players coming through. That Thomas at left back is a good player coming through. Even Tielemans, I know he's a bit older, but there's young bloods coming into the Leicester side. The worry for me is their keeper position. Obviously, Schmeichel was 34. He's not going to be around forever. Who replaces him? But yeah, we'll see what happens next season. If they can't get top 4 next season, and if it's very similar to the last two, then there's an issue. Then you need to look at the players. Then you need to look at the manager, and then they need to start making changes.
Definitely, I think that's a massive factor. And like you said, with Leicester, they have got a few aging players, but I think knowing Leicester, they'll get good young players in, give them a season.
They'll probably make sure signing. They'll sign players that really know for 10, 15 million, and they'll be successful.
Exactly. So, Leicester will probably, like I say, they'll sign someone, give them a season, probably play them in a few games here and there just to get them to adapt. And then the season after, bang, they'll be, fantastic for them. But finally, moving on to the top 4, obviously Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United and Man City. City champions, as we mentioned. United, I think, 12 points behind in the end. And then with obviously Liverpool and Chelsea just sort of getting into the top 4 on the final day. And I think Liverpool was already in the top 4 before that, but, still had something to play for. I'll start with United, obviously. If you had told me at the beginning of the season we would have finished second, I would have taken that. And I think especially after our start as well, if you look at lost to West Ham, only just beat Brighton, but we played poorly in that game. Then I think we lost to Tottenham, and our window wasn't exactly the greatest either. I would have bitten your hand off for second place. I know, obviously, we were 12 points behind, but City had to keep going all the way into May to sort of make sure the job got done, rather than when we finished second to them a few seasons ago, they did properly run away with it. So a good season for United. Obviously, we'll speak about Wednesday a little bit later on, but unbeaten away from home in the league is a fantastic bit of progression. And I'm not going to say it's an achievement, of course it is, but it's all about winning trophies and winning titles. But it's again another reason as to why I think all these United fans calling for Ollie's head at the minute, just completely clueless, because the progression is there, and if he's progressing the club, why would you say, or why would you turn him away and say no, it's time to go? I mean, he finished third last season. I know we were 30 odd points off top. This season it's second and it's only 12 points, but of course we did become top of the league and sort of push City a little bit into May, which is, fantastic. But of course, we want to be pushing them all the way and having a chance on the final day. So there's another clear progression, which is obviously United have a title charge next season and really go for it. And obviously trophies next season is a must. So I don't see any reason why Solskjaer should go. I think there's been clear progression. Obviously, like I said, Wednesday, we'll get on to later, was disappointing, but it is what it is. And in terms of City, Pep's done it again. The players he's brought in have been a massive difference, and we'll talk about Ruben Dias as well a bit later on. With regards to Liverpool and Chelsea, Liverpool again seemed down and out, and they've almost done a United of last season, like I mentioned. Just got a run together and just flew almost into that top four because they just had that momentum. They kept going, and they finished third with obviously Chelsea as well. Since Tuchel come in, sort of similar to Liverpool, it's just started winning, kept winning, and there you are. You made it into the top four. When Lampard did leave, it was very much like, I don't know if we're going to make it, but our aim is to finish in the top four. Well, not only are you in the top four, you're also in the Champions League final as well, which is something incredible that Tuchel has done. So again, I think decent seasons for people in the top four. Obviously everyone would have wanted to try and win the league and go and push City all the way. I think obviously, like I said, United was closest, but then again, not really. So it is what it is. But Morgan, we'll come to you, Chelsea Morgan. Thoughts on sort of Chelsea and the rest of the top four this season? A bit of a mixed season, I guess, for yourself.
Well, I'll do it in place order. So I'll start with City. I think it showed that they don't need to lead all the way. They can grind a league title out, which I don't think they've had to do. I know they had the close battle with Liverpool in 2019, when they both got like 96 and 97 points, or however many it was. But that, other than that, where they were neck and neck the whole season, they haven't really had to fight back. And if you look at the start of the season, they didn't get into the top four until after Christmas, which was, it was looking at one point like they would struggle. And was Guardiola no longer interested? Were the owners gonna pull the trigger? Were players revolting? Was there deeper issues at City after the stumble that they had last season? And it was from an outsider's point of view, I think it would be good to see that they can change their mentality and fight back. Obviously, they're starting to conquer the European demons as well. They're into the Champions League final, so it seems to be that they've put a lot of doubters to sleep or to bed with this season, and show that they can show a different side to their game. And I think that you've got to put some of it down to Pep. He reinvigorated them. He made good signings and had a successful season. United, is it any different to last season? Yes, they finished a place higher, but what have United got this season compared to last? Nothing. You've got top four again, the gap's shorter, a Europa League final, but it's still no trophies. It's still only a top four finish. Yes, there's progress. Yes, you are closer to the title, but in a normal circumstance this season, would United have come so close? Obviously, we'll never know, but I'm not sure. I think there are other teams, other squads that are better than them that just underperformed this season. I think that it's good to see that they are coming back, that United are coming back, but there are issues, obviously, with the owners. We've all seen the protests. We all know what's going on there. There's the young players coming through look good. Greenwood's really surprised me with how well he came on in the second half of the season. Diallo looks good in the few minutes he's been given. McTominay, I thought he was the standout player on Wednesday night. He seemed to be solid as a holding midfield player, but I don't know. It just seems to be that mentality-wise, trophies aren't coming the way that we're so used to growing up watching United win Premier Leagues, win League Cups, win FA Cups, win Champions Leagues. There's something lacking. Manager, players, owners, who knows? Liverpool, again, show a different side. They had to really grind. I thought Klopp was out. I thought he was going to be sacked when they only scored 1 goal in 3 months at Anfield. I thought that was then gone. I thought there's Europa League football guaranteed. Not a chance that they'll get into the top 4. But again, it's no trophies. It's top 4 football, but it's no trophy. Champions League football, but it's no trophies. So will they look back at this as a failed season? In the circumstances, possibly not. In years to come, possibly yes. That's my take on it at the moment. I think we've seen holes appear that we knew would be there and have come to light. The thin squads, the reliance on Van Dijk, Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Andy Robertson, Alisson. When those players stumble, Liverpool stumble completely, or if they get injured, Liverpool are done for. Because without Van Dijk, they looked a shambles until Phillips and Phillips and Williams? I can't remember. But their centre-back partnership at the end of the season was the only one that provided any sort of stability. The Alisson injury made them frail. Salah, Mane, Firmino didn't hit the same heights that they have done for the last 4 years. The midfield was constantly changing. The back 4 was constantly changing. He had his defensive frailties shown too many times this season. Too many times the ball was going into that pocket behind him. Andy Robertson wasn't the same force he is on the left-hand side. So there were realisations that Liverpool need to have a number 2 in these positions, which we all saw, but their fitness was so good that eventually it was going to drop, and this was the season. And then Chelsea, when Lampard was sacked, like I said, I've said it a few times, I came on here and I was negative. I said, I thought the season was over. We were 9th. I thought there's no coming back. Tuchel, I think I said top 4, FA Cup and Champions League semi-final. And we've got to the top 4 somehow. We didn't make it easy. We did have to do it the hardest way possible. But ultimately, we put ourselves in the position to be able to benefit from others' misfortune. He didn't really change the squad. He just seems to have changed a little bit of the mentality. But for me, there's still an issue with the mentality at this club, with bottling big games, particularly if we don't win on Saturday. That will just come back again. The way we played against Leicester in the FA Cup final wasn't good enough. No one seemed to lead. No one seemed to want to stick their neck on the line. The Villa game was appalling. No one was good enough. Even with the Mendy injury, we still behind when he got injured, so we can't put anything on that. We just look, without Kante or Kovacic in there, we just look a weaker side in general, and that's a worry. So we'll see what Tuchel can do in the summer. But as a whole, I think it has been second half of the season successful. Overall, if we don't win the Champions League, it's just the same season as we had last year. And the doubts come in that we're bottling finals and we've gone it'll be 3 years without a trophy. So would we be in a bit of a sticky patch? Possibly, yes. So I'd say the only one at the top 4 that's had a good season is Manchester City, because they're the only ones that have had success. I think the other 3, as you'd expect, have all got stuff to work towards, but it's not like they've got, at the moment, it's like any of the 3 have got something else to look back on and go, okay, this season was a success because of this. If Chelsea win the Champions League, obviously, I think that trumps everything that City have done so far this season. But as of right now, only City.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Just sort of going back on United, I get what you mean in terms of what's the difference between last season and this, and it's one position higher, and the gap is closed. But were Man United realistically, after the window we had, going to go and challenge Man City? Yes, for a little bit. But if you look at Man City, they've got 2, almost 3 squads which are full of quality. Whereas if you look at Man United, even on Wednesday, that is our best starting 11 which played. Okay, maybe you could change the goalkeeper, but that's about it. That was our best starting 11. Then you look to the bench. What do you bring on? You've got Dan James, Amad Diallo, you've got Donny van der Beek, for some reason, who isn't getting game time, and Juan Mata. And that is it. So for me, Man United massively overachieved this season with the squad they've got. I would have been very happy with finishing third again, or maybe even fourth. I probably would have been like, do you know what, fair enough that, I'll take this Champions League football again. But to finish second, and with, us being top of the league in about, I think it was February time. And like I said, City had to keep going all the way till May. I know eventually it's 12 points, but it wasn't over in April or whatever. So I think Solskjaer has done an incredible job this season with the lack of first team players he signed, because the only first team player he's really signed is Cavani, and he wasn't even meant to be a first team player. It's just because Martial's been terrible and Greenwood hadn't hit a striker's form that Cavani's had to come in and play. So I think United have had a very good season, and of course there's no silverware to show for that, and United is about winning silverware. But in terms of looking at the beginning of this season, what we brought in, the squad we had, I wouldn't have expected us to finish second and really have even been top of the league at one point and push City. So for United, of course, we want to be winning leagues and trophies, and Wednesday again was disappointing, but it is progress, and of course progress isn't, it's not what we want. We want to, if we won on Wednesday, that would have been even better progression. But again, we got to a final, which is something we didn't do last season. So again, the next step, and I'll say this now, if Ollie doesn't win a trophy next season, he's gone, in my opinion. Next season is the biggest season for him, because I think this summer he's going to be properly backed in terms of he'll get some of his first choices, and I think he's going to have the players at his disposal. So then it's down to him and having a title fight, winning a couple of trophies, whether that be League Cup, FA Cup, whether if we're still in the Champions League or if we drop out to the Europa League next season, he has to win a trophy. And if he doesn't win anything next season, and again, the only progression from second is first. So if he doesn't win anything next season, he's in a very, very, very sticky position, in my opinion. But Villa Morgan, the top four, the clubs that finished in there. Again, what's your sort of take on the teams that finished in there?
I think City have been standout. The run they went on was phenomenal. They've deserved champions. I think the signing of Ruben Diaz is on par, if not better, than Emi Martinez to Villa this summer. I think those two have been. I do think though those two have been the signings of the summer. I'd probably say Diaz just a little bit more. But look, Pep has definitely improved Manchester City defensively, which was the thing that let them down last year. No one even questioned their attacking intent, but this season defensively they've just been so good, and I think from the back, Edison has been phenomenal for him. I want to talk about Man United a little bit later in relation to the Europa League final. But I think with Liverpool and Chelsea, I think it's just a case of two teams that have used their squad depth to their advantage. I think in the climate of the season, with so many games coming thick and fast, I think Chelsea and Liverpool have been the best two teams outside of the rest that have just had better squads than the rest, and they're able to rotate and use their squads to the best of their abilities. I think Tuchel's done at Chelsea a fantastic job of getting them in the top four. The new manager bounce has worked. He's got players that seem to be out of the door, back in the door, and pushing those that were just starting for Lampard with no real reasoning. You only look at Alonso coming in and pushing Chilwell, and now Chilwell's playing really well. Werner's, for me, even though he doesn't score that many goals, his movement is undeniable. I think he does do a lot for Chelsea. A lot of players that, Rudiger and Christensen, for example, have had phenomenal second halves of the season. Tuchel's given everyone a to prove themselves. And I think that's the perfect way to have gone into the Chelsea job, because they were in turmoil at that point and it did look really, really bleak. So, and with Liverpool, what an end to the season they've had. You know, they've had the amount of injuries they've had to key players. You know, they've done phenomenal this season to even clutch into that top four. And, you know, fair play to Liverpool, because everyone wrote them off, including myself, and they've proved absolutely everyone wrong. And, you know, Klopp has had to put faith in players that he probably doesn't want to put faith in. And I think that's evident by the fact that they've already sealed the Konate deal, you know, just a week after the season's ended. But United I will touch upon later in relation to the Europa League. But look, I think United have had a good season. I think there's much more of a fear factor with Man United now. That is one thing that I think Ollie has done. I think there's more of a fear to play Manchester United than there was before. I think, you know, maybe a couple of years ago, everyone saw Man United as an easy, you know, we can get at them today. We could turn them over like Arsenal are now. You know, a lot of clubs were looking at United as, you know, sticking them in the dark even more. But now there's a genuine, you know, if you go a goal down against United, especially a goal down against United this season, they're probably in the second half going to put 2 or 3 past you, and they've got the players to hurt you. So I definitely think they've made progress in that. You know, they have closed the gap to City. Obviously no trophies and stuff, but look, they've closed the gap to City, and that is what Ollie intended to do this season. That's what he went out to do, along with win a trophy. Yeah, he didn't win it, but for me, he is a difficult one. I'll speak more later on it, but yeah, I think he's done well to close the gap, and obviously Fernandes has stepped up massively for most of this season, and he's played a big part in Man United being the only team to even put near enough, if you can call it a challenge, to Man City this season.
Yeah. Well, again, like I said, I think it's been a mixed bag for a lot of teams this season, and it's been a weird season with weird results. And I think, for example, like I said, United and City both had terrible starts, and first and second, and you know, we've managed to, you know, get top 4 and whatever. We are going to move on now to I guess the main bit, which is our Premier League team of the seasons. We've all done our separate Premier League team of the seasons. Is there anyone who wants to go first and put their neck on the line to show their team first? I'll offer it out.
I'll go, because I think I've got a few controversial ones in there, so I'll go.
I will say, doing these teams, obviously I've seen them all, and I think there's a lot of talking points. So I believe your team should be on screen, and we'll let you talk through it first, and then I'm sure we'll pose any questions later on.
I think Martinez is just absolutely undeniable. I think Ederson has kept more clean sheets than Emi Martinez this season, but honestly, watching this guy week in, week out for Villa has been an absolute blessing, and I genuinely believe that we have the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. What a phenomenal season for not only for him on a personal note, breaking Brad Fried or equaling Brad Friedel's clean sheet record at Villa, which I personally didn't think would get broken for a very long time. The actual insurance that he's given to players like Konsa, Mings, Target and Cash to develop this season, how confident he is at commanding that area is undeniable. And some of the saves this guy has pulled off this season to get Villa vital points. I mean, I only have to look at, you know, Wolves. He denied Connor Cody from 2 yards out at point blank range to get us a point. And Brighton, he made save after save after save. Like, there's so many games where he has just single-handedly kept us in it. So for me, it's an easy choice with Martinez, and I'm really surprised that he isn't in some people's, because I think it's a joke if he's not. Right back, it was hard between Cancelo and Wan-Bissaka, but I've gone with Cancelo. I think you could have put him anywhere across the back four in terms of right back and left back, because he's played, you know, virtually across the two for most of the season. But one thing that Cancelo has done this season is prove everyone wrong. You know, everyone thought City had signed him, and he was another Mendy. He was another big signing that was just going to flop. Not really much about him, but I tell you what, this season he has improved his game massively. And when he drops into midfield, when Man City have the ball, some of the stuff that he does and the defensive work that he's done this season has been unmatched for me. And I know Wan-Bissaka has been impressive for Man United, but I do think Cancelo has done a lot more for City. Centre-back partnership is a bit debatable, but I fully justify why I'm going to shove Konsa in there, because do you know what? We'll touch upon England in a bit, but I think it's a disgrace that Konsa got put out over Ben White and Ben Godfrey. I know both White and Godfrey won't actually be at the Euros, but for me, Konsa has been quite comfortably up there with John Stones as the best English centre back this season. You have to watch Villa to appreciate how good this guy is. And for me, the wrong English centre back is in the England setup. How Tyrone Mings is in the England setup over Konsa is a joke. Absolute joke. Because Konsa is the one that makes so many blocks and interceptions at key moments in games to mop up for Mings making mistakes. And he's just Mr. Reliable. And considering that, yeah, it was probably between Stones and Diaz, Konsa, you have to appreciate that he faces so many more attacks per game. He has to defend so much more during 90 minutes than John Stones. I think if we're looking at a defensive line as a team of the season who actually has to defend, I think Konsa's in there any day of the week. And I think Godfrey, I'd even put Godfrey over Stones purely because of the amount of defending that Stones doesn't do because of how good City are. Diaz is the one that has to be in there. I don't need to say anything. He's been phenomenal. Luke Shaw, again, absolutely brilliant. What an improvement he's made. And he's definitely starting for England at the Euros. If he picks Chilwell, I'm going to absolutely rip my hair out. What a midfield. Just unbelievable midfield. Souček very unlucky not to be in there, but how can you not have them three in the midfield this year? I saw something ridiculous, over 90 contributions between all three of them this year. Absolute insanity. Especially Gundogan. What a season. Like Cancelo, looked like he was a bit of not a flop signing, but a bit of an average player that, you know, was a good squad player for City. Stepped up massively this season. And my front three, look, you could... Rashford could be in there. You know, you could have Mahrez in there. There's a lot of players that you could shove in there. You could even have Son. But I've personally gone with Grealish, Foden and Kane. I think Grealish is obviously the questionable one because he has been out for 3 months injured. But for me, before Grealish got injured, he was, and I remember saying it to you, he was the best player in the league at that time. Absolutely no doubt about it. His stats, even being out 3 months injured, proves that. 3 assists off Harry Kane this season, who finished first. The guy was injured for 3 months. I'm telling you now, if Grealish had played all season, he would have absolutely smashed any assist stat for a year. He'd have got close to 20 assists, honestly. He'd have probably broke the record, because at that point in the season where he got injured, it was so many games where we needed him. He would have been the difference. He would have created that goal and got them extra assists. But either way, I think he's been phenomenal. And look, I don't blame him if he goes to Man City this year, because do you know what? The guy's going to prove at the Euros that he is world class. And I think he's just been phenomenal this season. I don't think you can have... That's it. I don't think you can have a team of the season and not have him in it or even speak about him. Foden, exactly the same. what a talent stepped up for Man City this year for ball. Foden and Grealish start for me in the Euros because I think both of them are just different level. And Kane, what a season! What a season! Stepped up his game massively with more assists, creating more chances for players like Son and Lucas and Bale and Bergwijn, whoever plays in the Spurs front three. But he single-handedly, for me, carried Spurs to a Europa Conference finish. And again, another player that's been injured for a large part of the season, like Grealish, but still gets in my team of the season because I think both of them have topped the charts in everything and been absolutely phenomenal for their teams in, getting them to the position. So, there are a lot of honourable mentions that I could put in there, like your Godfreys, like your Rashfords, like your Edersons, John Stones, Wan-Bissaka. I'd even probably put Chilwell in there for left back. But yeah, I definitely think that for me is the team of the season that I believe has been the best 11 this year.
Well, there's a lot of interesting players in there, and the ones that I think are going to chop and change between me and Morgan's squad as well. But Chelsea Morgan, initial thoughts on Villa Morgan's team? It's a mixed bag, but I think we can say with all them players, I think they all deserve at least a shot of being in there, if not in the team of the season.
It's solid, and he makes a very convincing point for every player. There are a few in there that aren't in mine, but I've noted down as honourable mentions or ones that I really debated over which one I was going to put in. The only player in there that I didn't think of at all was João Cancelo. Because he hasn't played as a right back for the whole season, because he's gone between that holding role and the base midfield, I know he's had a very good season, but Kyle Walker's playing in the right back position. He's been in the holding midfield role, and I couldn't put him in either.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I just had to double check who Morgan put in because I actually forgot who put in the right back, but I'll let him off. Looking at your team, to be fair, I think, like you mentioned, they've all, like I said, to be honest, you could probably pick two team of the seasons for the Prem this season. I think, there's been a lot of really good standout players, a lot of players who maybe statistically aren't up there, but if you watch their performances, deserve to be in it. And then there's obviously the ones that statistically are just, in there and in and around the team. But that's a solid team, and you gave us good examples for all players, so I can't really argue too much. Chelsea Morgan, do you want to go next, or shall I go next? I'll leave it up to you.
I can go next. I can go.
Right, let's get this one up. So this is Chelsea Morgan's team of the season, and he's already told us that he doesn't have João Cancelo in it, but here we go. What is your thoughts on this? So Chelsea Morgan, run us through it.
Well, I can see by the look on Villa Morgan's face he's not happy at the keeper. Particularly after what he just said, I knew that I was going to get a bad reaction. But, no, I had to throw up between Mendy and Martinez, and for me, after the situation we had at the back last season, we were conceding goals for, I think it was 54 goals away from home that we conceded. Only Newcastle had conceded more in that season with Kepa and goal and under Lampard. And Mendy came in and just, I think he was the next one. It was Ederson, Martinez, Mendy. And if he'd kept a clean sheet against Villa, Martinez and Mendy would have been level. So and he didn't even play every minute. He didn't start the season. So for me, he's not the best keeper. He's not the most comfortable on the ball, but his agility, his size in the goal it seems to give so much more confidence to the Chelsea back line than we saw with Kepa in the previous couple of seasons. Then I went with Kufal at the back, right back, simply because he seems to have been one of the driving forces behind West Ham's season. When he's played well, along with Souček, they've had a good game. They've been solid at the back when he's been involved, and I've just been impressed. I haven't watched loads of West Ham, but when I've seen him, I've been impressed. And I've looked at the ratings over the course of the season. He's been up there 9 times out of 10. So, like I said, I couldn't put Cancelo in because he's been in 2 positions for most of the season, and Walker's kind of been in over him towards the end. So that was why I put in Kufal. I thought the centre-backs picked themselves because of the partnership they had throughout the whole season. Diaz came in and was almost like a Van Dijk signing for City. He made a defence that looked quite defensively unstable, looked very stable, and that confidence then transpired to John Stones, who started to look like the player that City paid £50 million for from Everton. He started to, yes, he made mistakes, and I think with England, we kind of see that he makes more mistakes on his own without Diaz, but I do think that those mistakes are a lot less and a lot less detrimental than they were 2, 3, 4 years ago. So I think this is only going to keep John Stones only going to see get better and better as he goes on in his career, and then potentially become the number 1 centre back at City. Luke Shaw picks himself. No left back came near him this season. Chilwell would have been in there if he played at left back, but then Marcus Alonso's been getting in over him at left wing back, so I couldn't put Chilwell in there. Kante gets in because he's Kante. I mean, for the second half of the season, he has been the driving force when he's played well, along with Mason Mount. But N'Golo Kante has just been like more than 2 players. You hear it all the time when he plays, Kante's like having 2 players on your side. It's been like more than that at times, particularly in the Champions League matches. He's here, there and everywhere. His passing's come on. He drives through teams now. He doesn't just scurry about, nipping at ankles, winning the ball back. He drives forward. He assisted 2 goals. I think he assisted both goals in the Real Madrid second leg. He always seems to be involved in anything positive that happens. The same with Mason Mount. He created, I think, with Grealish having his injury, he then created the most chances of any English player in the Premier League. He couldn't has admitted he should have scored more goals. He's been creating, he's been scoring. I said a few times he had the Eden Hazard effect on this Chelsea side this season. When he didn't play well, Chelsea didn't play well. When he played well, Chelsea played well. Kind of saw that in the 2 most recent games against Villa and Leicester. He was against Villa and Leicester in the FA Cup final. When he was off it a bit more, Chelsea struggled. So that was why I know there's a huge debate: Mount, Foden, Grealish, Greenwood. There's no point getting into that because we'd be here for hours. But for me, Mount was just too good not to put in. Kevin De Bruyne picks himself. He's another one who you can flick a switch and he creates something out of nothing. He can. There's no way to put into words just how he keeps on getting better every year. And this was almost like his coming of age year where he stood out from the crowd. He stood out above Aguero, above Jesus, and became City's head man, leading on to Foden, who really broke onto the scene this season. And again, it just impressed me with how easily he seemed to slot into the City front line. I didn't expect him to break in. I thought City had too many creative players, but he took that David Silva role and just took it in his strides to make himself on. You can't drop him for City or for England anymore because he's been so consistently reliable through the last 7-8 months. Salah was a tricky one. I was toying up between Salah and Grealish. The only reason I went for Salah was because Grealish's injury, and then Salah was one of the main reasons that Liverpool got back in the top 4. His goals again, I think he was 1 or 2 off Kane for the Golden Boot. Somehow he managed to get there because I didn't think he was anywhere near it at one point. And he just seems to constantly be able to grind out good performances in a side that didn't really give him much to work with. Mane only gave him, I think, 1 assist all season. Firmino didn't play well. He didn't have the Henderson balls over the top, which he's had for the last couple of seasons. And then Harry Kane just had this season where he wasn't a striker, but yet he still got the Golden Boot because Mourinho said he was going to make him the world's best, and he was on the way to doing it. I never thought I'd see Harry Kane getting the most assists, but playing in that slightly deeper role, that false nine centre forward role, seemed to really suit him with his lack of pace. It really seemed to adapt to playing the balls from deeper, arriving in the box later, and making those crucial final touch to get the goal. So, yeah, that's a summary of my team this season.
Fair enough. Again,
I had a couple of
players. Go on.
I put Declan Rice, Bruno Fernandes, Grealish, Souček, Fofana, Gundogan, and Harry Maguire. They were ones that could have gone in but didn't.
I'm glad you mentioned the elephant in the room. I am stunned that Fernandes hasn't been able to get in that, but fair enough. You have got Mount and Kante in there.
I could sense every single the moment that went up on the screen, or the moment you got sent that, I knew that you weren't happy about it. The thing is like Mount for me is literally like the next. If I couldn't have put a front three, if I could play a diamond and have 4 midfielders, Mount would have got in any day of the week. But the problem is that I'd then lose someone from the forward line. So Mount would have been in mine.
I just had too many midfielders.
You're also only saying that to keep him sweet.
No, I'm genuinely saying though that after that Mendy decision, I'm a little bit stunned. I've got to be honest. but do you know what? Salah as well is another debatable one, because I opted away from Salah and Rashford because I think in terms of goals and assists, like goal contributions, they've been phenomenal this year. But in terms of performances, I think they've both been quite poor for their standards. So that's why I opted away from Salah personally. But look, I know for a fact, Braden, that Fernandes, you'll probably have him on 3 times on your screen.
Well, it's probably the full United team.
Yeah, it is probably. I reckon there's probably 4 Man United. So let's see your team, because I reckon there's 4 United players in it.
He's gone with 4.
Yeah.
Well, we've got 2 Villa players, 3 Chelsea players.
It only makes sense then, wouldn't it? But thanks, Morgan, for that team. And again, all valid arguments. And like I said, I think most players could be picked here, and you could probably have 2 squads that would easily make the team of the season. So I guess we'll do my one. I can confirm Donny van der Beek is not in this. Not quite this season. Right. This is my team of the season. And again, there is
2, 3.
Two United players. There's 2 United players. And
there's 3.
3 United players. I'm not gonna lie, it was close to 4 because Rashford was very much on my mind.
I thought he would be.
But the reason I haven't picked him for Premier League team of the season is he hasn't been as good in just the Premier League as he has in overall competition. I think overall he's got. I'm trying to think now. How many has he got? He's got 36 goal involvements, I think, this season in all competitions. But if you actually take that into the Premier League, I think it's like 11 goals and something or other. So it's not quite, as high a standard. But I think if we were doing an overall, every sort of all competitions team this season, he might well have been in it. But again, that's for another day. And I'll run through it quickly. Ederson in goal, I've gone for. Again, it could have been Martinez. Mendy's a great shout, and I do think he's massively improved Chelsea. But for me, Ederson, the most clean sheets. I know he's had Diaz in front of him, but City's defensive record this season has been absolutely unbelievable. And, I think he's worthy of being in the team of the season. But again, Martinez could easily have gone in there. Cancelo has been, for me, the best right back in the league. I would probably agree with, I can't remember who said it, was one of you two. I would agree with Wan-Bissaka possibly being second best, but for me, Cancelo is the best right back this season. Diaz, no brainer. I don't even have to say what he's done for Man City. I mean, I think Chelsea Morgan said he's been almost like a Van Dijk signing for him. So again, can't really say more than that. I put Harry Maguire in because I think United fans very much take him for granted, but so do the rest of the league. And you've seen Man United defending since he's been injured, and it's completely different, and it's nowhere near to the same level that when he's in the team. And I think he does give us that extra bit of leadership. And again, I'll keep saying it, since he's come in, our defense has massively improved even from last season. So I think he's so underrated and doesn't quite get the credit he deserves. So I've gone with Diaz and Maguire. Again, John Stones could possibly have been in there ahead of Maguire, but I think the advantage to Maguire being injured, as you'll see in the loss he's had on the Man United team, and especially the defence. So I've gone with Maguire. Again, Luke Shaw, like you two as well, no question there. He has been the best left back and should hopefully start at left back for England in the Euros coming up, like Maguire, with possibly Stones at the back for England. I've gone De Bruyne, Mount, Fernandes. Again, Souček was one I was going to put in, but I think with Mason Mount, he's been Chelsea. I said this when Lampard was in charge, and obviously you guys had a bit of a mixed time then. That Mount was your best player with all the players you brought in: Werner, Havertz, Thiago Silva. Mount was still your best player, and I think he's kept that consistency up. And is rightly obviously in the England squad and is in a Champions League final after scoring in a semi-final. And I think he's been massively consistent. De Bruyne and Fernandes, I don't even need to talk about. I mean, the levels that these two guys are on, you're arguably looking at two of the best midfielders, especially the two best creative midfielders in the world we've got currently. So there's no question for me them to have to be in any team. Salah I've gone with, and I've purely gone with the fact that he has had probably, I think the best word to say is a poor season. But again, second top goal scorer. He was with Kane all the way to the end of the season. I think, one goal separated them, or 2 goals separated them in the end. So if this is, if this was Salah in his poor season, I'm again scared for when he hits his form from the beginning all the way to the end, because he's an absolute goal machine. Heung-min Son gets absolutely slept on in the Premier League this season. 17 goals, 10 assists. And again, most of them assists have been for Harry Kane, who again is a no-brainer in the team this season. So for me, Foden, I get it. Yes, he's had a fantastic season and really broken through, but I've got an award for him later on, which we'll go through as well. Grealish, I think he's unfortunate to have not played the full season. If he played the full season, he would have had a massive, massive shout at being in it, because as we're all aware, Villa is a completely different team with Grealish in it. And, I think, statistically, he would have been up there with the best. And it's interesting how you let him go to Man City now, Morgan, not Man United. But again, there was viable mentions. I think Konza and players like that, Souček, like I've mentioned, could easily have got in. Mendy, Martinez for the goalkeeper as well.
Gundogan.
Yeah, Gundogan's another one. He stepped, to be fair. Gundogan is one. I think Gundogan is very similar to De Bruyne this season in terms of the fact that when De Bruyne was fit, he was the one sort of getting the goals for City, etc., etc. Then when De Bruyne got injured, it was Gundogan then took over and was sort of the one, having so many goal contributions. But then that tailed off, and when De Bruyne had come back in, and it was, I guess, more of a team effort. So, for me to put Gundogan in, it'd be over De Bruyne, and I wouldn't do that because I think De Bruyne is on another level to him this season. So that's my team.
I think Gundogan. The thing is, I don't see how you cannot have Gundogan in it, purely because, right? That midpoint in the season, where Manchester City went that ridiculous run of form, Gundogan was the person, along with Foden, who carried that Manchester City side. Gundogan went on that run where he scored, I think, 10 consecutive games, and he actually won City 14 points across the season. If he hadn't have won them points, Manchester United would have won the league. So for me, you can't have a team of the season, and it's definitely up for debate because I think there has been very strong midfielders this season. You can't have a team of the season and not have Gundogan in it. He is just at times he's carried that Man City side to the title. He really has.
Okay then, Morgan, you're now the manager. Gundogan goes into that team. Who comes out? Go on, you've thrown yourself under the bus. Who comes out of that team?
I tell you what. Just for you, I'd go to a back three and get rid of Maguire, and I'd shove four in. I'd shove four in midfield, Gundogan in, because I can't get rid of anyone else. So it'd have to be Maguire. Sorry, mate.
So effectively, what you're saying is because it's actually not that close, you're gonna have to change the whole system because you can't take any other midfielder out. You've got to shove another one in there.
Oh, look, I didn't want to upset you because I wanted to say Son and go with a diamond in midfield with Salah playing as a forward, but I thought you'd have such a go.
Nah.
Me after your piece about Son. I thought you'd be headhunting me, so I opted to back away from getting Sonny out.
Morgan, you just should have put your bollocks on the line. Like, that's what you should have done. But
you are putting. I tell you what, mate. You are putting your bollocks on the line, putting Maguire in a team of the season. I've got to be honest.
Wow.
Very brave.
Well,
very brave.
I think he has.
He's been good this year. I do think he's. Do you know what? One thing that I think Maguire doesn't get enough credit for is his mental strength. The guy has been wrote off by everyone. You know, you can even see in the interview that he does with Gary Neville on the overlap that it's constantly in his mind that, you know, that transfer fee. And look, I genuinely think he's improved his game a lot this season. I think he's made Man United a lot more solid than people actually think. And I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves. But in my opinion, I think just for his first 3 months into the season alone, I don't think I could have him in a team of the season. But I can see why you've put him in there.
I think it's a valid point. He obviously started poorly, but I think he's in a very similar boat to Luke Shaw because Luke Shaw also started the season pretty poorly, but has obviously gone on and improved massively. And I think he's another player who, again, started poorly, but has, you know, taken sort of his performances to the next level and, you know, is looking like the player that, you know, it's maybe not worth 80 million, but it's close to the one we signed. So that's why I put him in there. Chelsea Morgan, I know you've got to shoot off, and once again, we appreciate you having coming on, and you know, you're always welcome on here. I guess the last thing to sort of ask you before you go is Saturday night Champions League final. What's your thoughts / predictions for that?
I don't want to predict anything, but it'll be close. It'll be cagey. Neither team's going to want to commit too much early. I don't think it goes to penalties, but we'll have a winner before. After 90 minutes, there'll be a winner.
After 90 minutes, so extra time. Well, thanks for coming on, mate. As always, you're always welcome. We appreciate your time, and I guess we have to say best of luck for Saturday, but really, I don't want any team to win.
See you later.
Cheers. Thanks, mate. Right, just to sort of round up the stream before we finish, I guess, on the England squad, just got a couple things to go through, sort of quick fire sort of awards that we can give out for this season. I think a couple of them are sort of no-brainers. Signing of the season, I think there's only one man that this could go to, and hopefully we're in agreement with this. I know you've possibly got another name up your sleeve, but I'm going to go with the obvious, and I'm going to go with Ruben Dias. I just think, you know, he's basically won City the league compared to last season. So my signing of the season is Ruben Dias.
Do you know what? Just to be different, I am going to go with Emi Martinez, just purely purely based on the fact that I think he has done so much for the side. And you compare where we were last season from where we are now. I think Emi Martinez is a massive part of that. And look, Diaz has had a phenomenal season. And I'm only saying Martinez to be different, and because I've got a bit of personal bias. But yeah, look, Martinez has been phenomenal. So I'm going to give it to Martinez. I've got to stick with my boys.
That's fair enough. I think, again, a valid signing and definitely one that's massively improved Villa. So I can't really argue, but for me, Diaz just pips it. On the flip side, worst signing of the season. Do you know what? I think there's only one name that really springs to my mind for this.
God.
I'm going to go with my gut, and the first name that comes to my head, and that's Willian. I'm going to go with Willian.
Look, I think Willian is definitely the easy option. He's been terrible this year. I'm going with a certain someone from Manchester United, and that is Donny van der Beek.
Wow, that's hurt me.
And what a pointless signing! Just a terrible signing. Let's be. He's lost all his confidence, and yeah, just a real shame. Real shame.
Well, that's really put a dagger in my heart. I guess we'll cut the stream there then, and we might as well all go on. No, it's a valid comment and it's a valid argument. However, I'd have to argue you might have to put Thiago below him because he's got less goal involvements in over 3 times a minute. So, that's my argument. Biggest disappointment this season. There's a number of names I could put in here. The likes of Werner, Havertz, Anthony Martial. But I am going to give this to Donny van der Beek. This is my award for him. Biggest disappointment. And not all of it is his fault. A lot of it's on Ollie for not playing him or bringing him on or only giving him 2 minutes to play or whatever. But again, I'm just disappointed in, the chances he got. There was a few games where he come off the bench and didn't really, take it by a scruff of the neck. But then I'm also sort of a bit disappointed that he didn't get as many minutes as I would have definitely liked to have seen him play. But I think there's glimpses of him, like I've mentioned against Wolves. I thought he played really well in his preferred position, I'd say. And Southampton, when he actually started 2 games, he actually played well. So, yeah, that's my award for him. His sort of biggest disappointment. I won't call him worst signing, but I call him probably the biggest disappointment this year. But again, a little bit of that's on Ollie, in my opinion.
Biggest disappointment for me, I am going to go with a bit of a controversial one. Arsenal fans look away. I am going with Thomas Partey. Now, my justification for picking Thomas Partey is that I'm yet to see this guy being world class, and I'm sick of Arsenal fans telling me that he's brilliant. When he gives the ball away, his passing is shocking at times. His shooting is horrendous. I don't think many people have seen him shoot, but if you have, it's horrendous. And look, in the Europa League semi-final, he didn't step up. He did not step up. And don't get me wrong, none of the Arsenal players did. And I know we're doing it on Premier League team of the season, but look, in most Premier League games, he hasn't been good enough. And he's got injured an awful lot throughout the season. And I just don't think he's performed anywhere near the price tag that Arsenal have paid for him. So I'm gonna put him as a big disappointment. That's not to say that he won't be good next season, but I do think Arsenal fans look at him with a bit of a blind eye because they think he's world class and they're just blaming it on the fact that the rest of the team's poor. No, he has been poor individually as well. I think he gets scapegoated an awful lot. And I think he gets away with it because of the name that he is. He hasn't done anything in the Premier League yet to show me that he's world class.
Fair enough. Young player of the season. Now, I said earlier on that I didn't include this man in my team of the season, but he's definitely worthy of this award. My young player of the season is Phil Foden. And I think, you know, even looking back to when City were starting the season a bit rocky, he was their standout player. He scored a couple of big goals. I remember one against West Ham when they drew 1-1. He scored in that game and, you know, helped them, you know, gain a point from that. And, you know, was really sort of taking, you know, all the pressure on himself. And, you know, he delivered for them, and he's kept delivering. And yeah, for me, Phil Foden is young player of the season.
Yeah, Phil Foden, easily, no debate.
Fair enough. Gearing up then to the final award, but this is one not based off of this season. Manager of the season. Now, I think there's two names for this award, and one of them is Pep Guardiola for, again, winning the league with City, but he's also, you know, in a Champions League final and where they were in the league as well, similar to United with their poor start. You know, bang, he went on a 20-odd game win streak and he just won the league. Simple as that. So he's there. And I think the other one's got to be David Moyes for West Ham, taking them from, as most people would have thought, near the relegation, possibly getting relegated into Europe. So I don't know which way to call it. I'd probably go David Moyes over Pep because of where West Ham have come this season, and they could even have got Champions League. And, you know, a lot of people, like I said, either thought they'd be in and around the relegation fight or even get relegated. So I'm going to go David Moyes for manager of the season.
I am too. I'm going to go with Moyes. I think you have to consider the budget and the expectation to where they finished. I think, look, Manchester City, no doubt, with the budget and the players they have, should be, you know, let's be honest, they're winning the league. So for me, David Moyes, you know, for what he's achieved, I think he's massively overachieving with that West Ham team, and it is very, very, very hard not to look past him. I also think Bielsa deserves a special mention because I think, you know, what Bielsa has done at Leeds has been phenomenal this year. So I would put Bielsa in that conversation as well. But for me, it's David Moyes.
The final sort of award off of this season, we've got a couple more to do with next season, is, of course, it could be a similar answer here to maybe what the first one we said, is player of the season for the Premier League. Now, obviously, Ruben Diaz is a player that springs to mind. But I'm going to go with Harry Kane, player of the season. Top goal scorer, most assists. The guy's been playing midfield striker. You know, I think was he injured this part of the season? Yeah, he missed a bit of the season as well. He's been ridiculous, and, you know, I think his time is also up at Tottenham. I do think he won't be playing there next season. So whether that's United, I highly doubt it'll be United, but whether it's us or City, more likely City, you know, I think if he does go to City, they might win the league again next year, and he might get his hand on a couple of trophies. So my player of the season is going to be Harry Kane, because I think he's just been ridiculous, considering he's played in a pretty poor Tottenham team as well, which have only finished, 7th, and, you know, haven't really performed to their high standard. So Harry Kane for me, player of the season.
Yeah, Harry Kane for me as well, but I'm also going to do a Villa player of the season. Now, there was a lot of contenders for us, and I obviously want you to do United one as well. With us, there was a lot. You got Konza, you got Martinez, Matty Cash, Target, Grealish, of course, Watkins. But for me, I think Villa's player of the season, I'm going to go orthodox one. It's between Matt Target and Ollie Watkins for me, and I'd probably give it just to Matt Target. I think I think he's been absolutely phenomenal this season. I think compared to what he was last year, I think it's ridiculous the amount of progress that the guy has made. His 1v1 duels now are so much better. You know, he just reads the game so much better, and his game has come on so much, and he's played every minute of every game for Villa this season and been phenomenal and stand out every single week. He's barely got beaten on that right hand side by anyone, and I just think he deserves a mention because the amount of stick that he got from Villa fans, especially last season, to turn around your career like that, club as big as Aston Villa, I think he deserves so much credit, and I think he was, if anything, he was in an injustice in the fact that Villa did so well this season, because I think if we hadn't have done that well, he would have been hands down Player of the Year this year, and if there hadn't have been so many standouts in easily have won it. So yeah, my Villa Player of the Season is Matt Target, but obviously there's so many that I could have chose.
Yeah. Man United Player of the Season. There's the obvious answer, and then there's the likes of Luke Shaw, even Harry Maguire to an extent.
It's got to be Fernandes, surely.
Yeah, I said, obviously I did a sort of a TikTok on United's Player of the Seasons. I gave it to Bruno. I think Luke Shaw and Maguire would be close in most improved this season, and maybe I think Luke Shaw won Players Player in obviously real life. So yeah, I think Bruno Fernandes. I know he's had games where he's disappeared, and you could say Wednesday was one of them as well. But without Bruno Fernandes, I said we'd be where Arsenal are. So again, last season he come in, hit the ground running, hit incredible stats, and the question was, well, can he do it for a full season? Yes, he can. And the stats he's produced this season has been ridiculous. So hopefully he can kick on again, and the next stage, I guess, for Bruno is to perform basically week in, week out against the big teams and the small teams as well. So that's sort of my Man United Player this season is obviously Bruno Fernandes. Couple awards to look ahead to next season. I don't know which one to do first. We'll do this one first. One transfer that you think will happen this window, and that can be for Villa, it could be worldwide. This one's a difficult one for me because I obviously want to keep it worldwide, but then I'm also hurt from Wednesday, so I want to do a United one and get this player in. I will generally put my neck on the line now. I think Sancho to United will happen, and
so do
the reason I say that is, Reese, by the way, I know you're watching and you think Sancho's going to Liverpool. I'm gonna tell you now, Sancho's not going. I'm gonna tell you now, Sancho's not going Liverpool because it's come out today that Liverpool are not in the pursuit for Jadon Sancho. So again, that's a little bit of a boost for United, but to have personal terms agreed, to have all the fees from last summer still agreed for a whole year, the only thing that needs to be agreed is the deal, like the summer money to go to Dortmund. Sancho wants to join United. He was disappointed last year when he didn't. I think it has to happen, and Ollie has to get backed, and I think that's the marquee signing because we didn't really have one last summer. Van der Beek was our most expensive, is not really marquee. I think he has to have a marquee signing this summer, and I think it will be Jadon Sancho. So for me, Man United, I think Sancho will be playing for United next season. If I had to go maybe out there a little bit in terms of, maybe another club. Ooh. Do you know what? I would not be surprised if Lukaku went back to Chelsea. That wouldn't surprise me. Because I think Inter could be in a bit of disarray. Inter could be in a bit of disarray with sort of their financial situations as well. So I'll go with them too. But again, Morgan, I'll hand it over to you for maybe a Villa point of view, but then also a worldwide point of view.
Well, I will say Harry Kane to Manchester City. I think that is a done
that's a good one.
deal, but I think it will happen anyway. One that I would love to happen from a Villa point of view. Now, we're in a weird situation really, because I think we're more looking to just bring in a little bit more, leave the attacking pressure off Jack Grealish next season. I think Barkley was meant to do that. He did at the start, but fell off, of course, and he won't be returning to Villa next season. So I think it's a very realistic one. I think it's one that I genuinely think the player could actually be interested in. I think Emi Buendia to Villa. I don't think he would go to Arsenal. I think he would come to Villa. And I'll tell you why I think he would come to Villa. Because Villa have already slapped a 40 million bid on the table, which Norwich haven't obviously said anything yet. But Villa are leading the race to sign Emi Buendia. And look, if I was Emi Buendia, why wouldn't you join Villa? You're going to be playing with Jack Grealish every week. You're going to have a striker in Ollie Watkins that does everything for the team. And look, another one as well that Villa have been heavily linked with is Dwight McNeil from Burnley. I've got to be honest, I've seen moments of brilliance from him, but I don't know whether he is the next step forward for Villa. But I think a player in Buendia who was phenomenal when he was in the Premier League the first time round, he went underestimated a lot of the time. I think it's a realistic deal for Villa. I think it'd be a clever bit of business, especially when you consider the fee in the modern game, only 40 million for a player like Buendia. And I think he'd slot into that number 10 role for Villa absolutely perfectly. And it would allow, if we played Nakamba or found a better version of Nakamba, it would allow McGinn to push forward and also help Buendia out and get him more chances. So, yeah, I think Buendia is a very real. Buendia to Villa, I'm 60% sure will happen.
Wow.
60-70% sure that we'll get it over the line.
Fair enough. I'm not going to doubt you, because you probably got better know-how on that than I do. I mean, I only heard of Arsenal really sniffing, but again, that might be a good signing. The final one, and I guess it could be a bit early to call, but we'll do it now, and we'll do it at the beginning of next season as well, when I guess all the transfers and whatever are done. One to watch next season. Now, it can be a young player, it can be an old player. It doesn't have to be like under 21 or whatever. Oh,
I think it would be wrong to do anyone else other than from our clubs. I've got to be honest.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. So in that case, I've got two names. Two names, but I don't want to drop him into it because I don't know how it'll play out. Mm-hmm. I'd love to put Van der Beek in that situation, but I don't. The thing is, the Pogba situation. If we lose a midfielder, we've got one to come in, so that plays a massive impact on how much game time he could get next season. So I'm not going to drop him in there because that's still all up in the air. The two players I'm going to name is Mason Greenwood, because I think and I hope he can have a full season. Of really good form. And then the other one is Amad Diallo having a full season again, because I think in glimpses he's shown really good bits and pieces in like Europa League when he's come on in the Premier League. When he started against Wolves, he played as like a false nine, and if he was 28 and played 8 seasons for us, he was that good. So I'm going to go with them two names as sort of a joint one to watch: Greenwood and Amad Diallo.
Okay. I am going to go with, so there's 2 players in mind, technically 3, but I think 1. So Ollie Watkins is definitely one to watch for next season again, because I think this season, in his debut season, he has just been phenomenal. But I think the guy has definitely got another gear, and I think he's got so much potential. And I think he'll be hitting, I reckon he'll be close to 20 goals next season, with a fully fit Grealish hopefully all year, and players like Buendia around him. But but the two sort of spontaneous ones, Carney Chukwuemeka, look, he is definitely going to be involved in that first team next season.
Louis Barry.
Absolutely, no doubt. And yeah, the third one, Louis Barry, I think both of them will be involved in Villa's first team next year. I think both of them have massive futures at the football club. If I was even picking a fourth, Kane Kesler-Hayden, considering that we've just got rid of El Mohammadi, it looks to be that Kesler-Hayden is going to be our backup right back next season, which, look, at the end of the day, he may even have more of a chance than Carney and Louis. So, look, I think the realistic one that's actually going to play consistently week in, week out is Ollie Watkins. But if I had to pick one out of the three academy graduates, it's Carney. I think he's quoted to be the best 16-year-old or one of the best 16-year-olds in the world right now. So I genuinely think that next season he is, or I think he's 18. Either way, he's a young lad and he's got the world at his feet. And the Youth Cup has showed that. So, look, I think it'll be Ollie Watkins one to watch next season.
Fair enough. I am aware that we are meant to be talking about sort of the England squad. However, I feel as though we might leave that until the full squad gets announced, and then we can talk about, the players that missed out, etc., etc. So we might leave that. However, we will finish obviously on sort of the European football. Obviously, Man United losing to Villarreal the Wednesday night on penalties. I mean, I've had all I need to say about Man United. So, again, look, I'll just quickly say about it. Look, obviously, I was gutted and it's disappointing that we missed out on a major trophy. If you're going to put blame on people, it's the team that started was the team that should have played. So Ollie can't be at fault for the team. It's then the players who didn't turn up. I think McTominay, like you mentioned, was probably our best player, and Cavani were probably our two best players. But then the blame goes back onto Ollie. Why has he not changed anything? You got Donny van der Beek on the bench who, we need a goal. The team has sat back. You need to sort of break the lines with runs and balls through the line. And he waited till like the 100-odd minute before we even made a sub or something. And then obviously ends up extra time again. It didn't look like we were going to go win it. It looked like we were playing for penalties and extra time. And then come the shootout, I mean, De Gea's record is just horrendous for saving penalties. It even got leaked, like his notes he had. And, I think it's for the 6th or 7th taker. If he'd actually stuck with his notes, he would have saved it because that's where the guy went on the night. So, and then obviously De Gea's penalty being missed, I would have rather if he just levered it and if it hits the bar, if it goes over, whatever, at least you've really put your foot through it like their keeper sort of did for their pen. So, yeah, obviously I'm gutted and, a major chance to win a trophy. And I think the squad needs to win a trophy to have that hunger to go and win more. But what I'd say is I'll give Marcus Rashford the full credit is after I seen his interview, immediately I was like, okay, that's it. That game's done. Next season now. We've got to focus on next season. Big summer ahead. So we've got the Euros coming up as well to sort of help me take my mind off that shambles. But it's, again, I can't question the players in that team and the likes of Rashford, the likes of even Pogba, even Bruno, Mason Greenwood, they all want to win. Greenwood, Rashford, players like that who have been through the setup, Brandon Williams, they want to win for the club. They know what it means to win for this club. Dean Henderson, David De Gea, I think he's the last player still in the squad that won the last Premier League with Fergie. They know what it means to win. And, Rashford's interview I thought was fantastic and one of the best I've seen a United player do, especially after a massive loss like that. So, yeah, it's gutting and of course it's not great, but we've just got to look forward to this summer. We need a good window. Ollie needs to be backed with first choice, first team players that you can put straight into the starting 11. And we go again in whenever we carry over, start again for pre-season. That's all we can do now. We've got a big summer. Look ahead. The past is in the past, and fair play to Marcus Rashford, especially with all the racial stuff which happened after the game as well. I think that's bang out of order, to be honest. And he's handled himself very, very well. And Man United could be proud of him as an academy graduate. So yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on Wednesday. Of course, it was gutting, but we move on. We've got to look ahead now to the summer, into next season, and hopefully closing the gap again and winning trophies.
I think Wednesday, from a neutral point of view, I would probably pinpoint the word embarrassing on it. It was a quite toothless performance from Man United. I don't think many Man United fans need me to say it. The problem is that you've got a lot of players in that team who should have stepped up on that night. And for me, I don't really think Rashford should be one of the ones that should actually be getting shot at. If I was pinpointing a player that let United down that day, I would be pinpointing Bruno Fernandes, the guy that has been the messiah for Manchester United this season, the guy that has carried Manchester United at times to that second place, just didn't show up. And for me, he hasn't showed up for a long time. I can't really remember vaguely the last game that he performed to the level that he was at the start of the season. I just think United had way too much quality on that pitch and no excuse. And I don't think people can physically blame Ollie for the 90 minutes. Yes, you can blame him for stuff after that, but that 90-minute performance from Manchester United was not good enough. And unfortunately, not enough of them players are winners. But the players that were winners, Paul Pogba, embarrassing, clueless, just looked. This is a guy that's won a World Cup, and he genuinely looked like he couldn't be bothered. This is a player that has won the biggest trophy in the world. He's won it. He's been there and won it. He knows what to do. And I think he let Manchester United down more than anyone. Bruno Fernandes bangs on about winning all the time and being successful. He let everyone down. I think it was more... I actually think Rashford and Greenwood and Cavani and Luke Shaw and Scott McTominay as well, I think them five were the only players who were even trying to take the game to Villarreal and were actually trying to force an issue, especially Scott McTominay. I've gave him stick so much, but come on, it means a lot if he's the best player on the pitch. Come on.
And just quickly on that, again, another player come through the system. He knows what it means to win. But
yeah,
the issue I have with Scott McTominay is people rave about his performance on Wednesday, and I will as well. He was one of our best players. And we'll speak about, when he scored 2 against Leeds and got an assist, and it was unbelievable. The problem is you don't see that every week. Those are 2 performances over a 60-game season we've had. 2 performances.
I've said it since day one, haven't I?
Yeah, if he played like that every week, Man United fans would not have an issue with Scott McTominay. But I think the quote still stands. And I think it's Mark Goldbridge that said it, and I can't remember when he said it. I think it was after last season, going into this season that's just finished. Man United need to get to a squad level where McTominay is a squad player. He can come in and play maybe 15 games a season and play well. But if you're going to have McTominay, and especially Fred next to him, who obviously I've slated throughout the whole season, I don't think that's going to win you titles and win you cups. You looked at Pogba and McTominay. That was the perfect midfield to play against a team like Villarreal. I know obviously they didn't play, or Pogba especially didn't play to his best. But could you imagine Fred playing in that game? How useless he would have been. Like, you needed to break them down with creativity. We didn't do that, but the players on the pitch were there to do that, if that makes sense. So, again, I get your point.
I think from a tactical point of view, Villarreal, to their credit, played anti-football and it worked. I think one thing that the problem is that Man United should have saw it coming. In a league format where you're playing against teams like Villa, where you're playing against teams like West Ham for points, right? There's a difference between a league mentality and a cup mentality. Villarreal would have went into that game knowing if we deny Manchester United spacing behind us to run into and pretty much play for a draw or play for set pieces, they knew for a fact that playing anti-football for 120 minutes, that was their best chance of getting you into a penalty shootout where it is literally a lottery. And Emery, the last time he won the competition, was in a penalty shootout. Villarreal were just clever because they knew not to commit themselves. They never overcommitted. They never, ever committed past that halfway line as a defence because they knew that they had to. So, it was just disappointing for Man United. It really was. And look, at the end of the day, it's a really poor day at the office from them. But like you said, they have to move on now. Players have let them down. They've got to step up now more than ever because they've got to do it for Ollie. If they want to play for him next season, they've got to step up because people would have had him gone after that game.
Definitely. And, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I do look at our bench from that game, and because we obviously played Pogba in his normal position, and we had all our attacking players on the pitch, there wasn't really anyone apart from a Van der Beek to really bring off the bench, and I think he should have come on. So hindsight's a wonderful thing. If we had signed Sancho last summer, maybe Mason Greenwood doesn't start the game, but bang, you can bring Mason Greenwood on, who can win your game, score you a goal, or someone drops out, but you've still got someone to bring on, whether that is a Rashford or a Cavani or a Greenwood or even a Sancho, if he was to start ever from the bench, you've got that extra player to bring on, and we just didn't have that, which is disappointing. But of course, we've gone through a lot. We've done a lot today. It's been a long stream, but we've wrapped up sort of our Premier League team this season. The season is over. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been our first season where we've done, our live streams, our videos on it, and gone through it all. So Morgan, I appreciate your support throughout the full season. It's been a blast, and we've got the Euros to go through as well, and the transfer window. Of course, we'll probably bring back the live streams for that as always, like we did in January time. So it's transfers coming up. It's the Euros coming up. There's managerial sackings going all over the place. It's going to be a fun-packed, I guess, summer really before we head into next season. And we'll be with it every step of the way, and giving you guys our thoughts and the latest information as well. So if you have stayed to the end, please make sure you do like, subscribe, and share the video. Follow our Twitter as well with all our football news when we do go live, etc., etc. There's loads of stuff over on there. We are also on TikTok as well. If you aren't aware of us, we are on TikTok. So it's SZN Football Podcast. We've got about 600 followers on there, which is mental. Hopefully we can get a few of them over here because we're still yet to hit 50 subs. So one more is what we need. We need one more sub for 50, and then we can kick on and try and get 100. So, of course, share the video, let people know, and we shall see you in a bit. Thank you all for watching, and we'll be back later in a bit, guys.